Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to the New Mainstream podcast, where we explore the impact of multicultural consumers on marketing and media. I'm your host, Mario Carrasco, and co-founder of ThinkNow. Today, our guest is Delphyne Lomax Taylor, Principal at V&L Research and Consulting. Welcome, Delphyne.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be here.
So glad to have you. And, one of the things I love about the insight industry, we all come from such different backgrounds from, places in the country, things that we've studied, what we did before market research. Would love to learn a little bit about your journey in the insight industries and how you came to become a principal at V&L Consulting.
So I would call myself seasoned. I've been in the industry probably now almost close to 40 years. And I almost cringe to say that, but I got my journey. I'm originally from Akron, Ohio. I went to a very small college called Mount Union College, and it's now called the University of Mount Union. I'm dating myself, Mario, but
Akron, Ohio,
Akron.
Akron, the hometown of LeBron James, right?
I always get that, and that is exactly right. Exactly right. But I got started probably in the late 70s, early 80s. I was in college. Rubbermaid came on campus and was looking for people to do an internship. So I was at a 4-year school, but if I got into this internship, it was going to take 5 years to complete. Well, I did get that internship with Rubbermaid. And what we were supposed to do, I was supposed to go to different departments at Rubbermaid, maybe product development, maybe accounting, just all over the place. My first one was in the research and development, R&D department. And that's where I stayed. Matter of fact, not only did I stay, they liked me, and I ended up going to school full time, going to school and also working for Rubbermaid. So I was called a non-traditional student. I would actually go to my professor's home or meet on campus and do my studies. So I interned with Rubbermaid, and I was in the research and development department. My primary role was when they developed a new product, I would hire housewives to do surveys in malls. I would be responsible for getting that product. I would be responsible for, questionnaire development, putting it in the field, and coming back, and doing all the report writing. Now, you heard me. There were no computers. It was paper and pen. I shouldn't say it wasn't any computer, but it wasn't the computers that we know today.
Yeah.
That's how I got my start. Fast forward, my husband at the time wanted to move to the Atlanta area. So we moved to the Atlanta area. So we packed up our bags, 2 small children, headed to the Atlanta area. And it was hard for me to find a job. Everyone said I was overqualified. But I finally got a job at a company called Peachtree Surveys. They were a data collection company, both qualitative and quantitative. So at first I started off in the phone room, and then I ended up running the qual department. Fast forward again, left there, went to a hospital system in the strategic planning department, worked there for a few years, where I met my now business partner of 30 years, Deidre Virgil. We started V&L Research and Consulting, which we are a full service market research company. So that's all in a nutshell. So I've been in this research industry, as I said, since the late 70s, early 80s.
That's amazing. And I love that Rubbermaid. I mean, you were recruited, which is I feel like rare in our industry. Lots of times people in our industry have a job or profession outside of the market research industry first, but you started out the gate, so you have that deep expertise.
Started out the gate, and like I said, I actually was going to school to be an accountant. But after spending that research and development and actually seeing how a product was made and all that went into it, and I was responsible for the prototypes, like making sure they weren't, they came back intact, and it was exciting.
And so I'm really curious, do you remember any of those products that you first tested for Rubbermaid? Like what was some of the R&D?
I can give you one example. It was interesting. They were getting ready to do their, I remember when they developed their first, cause they were known for the dustpan and the trainer and things like that. But I remember when they wanted to break into the, container industry, plastic containers, different sizes. So,
like Tupperware?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Tupperware essentially? Okay.
So they wanted to break into that market. And I remember being in the research and development, one of my roles, I had to go out to different retail establishments, both like a Walmart and say a Macy's, different types of retail establishments, and buy all the containers, every size. If it had a different color lid, every lid, and bring them back. And of course they will compare color and is this opaque? Is this clear? And so I remember doing that product, and then working on the research line to decide, should they be round? Should they be rectangle? Should it be, how many cups should it hold? All of that.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. And so, flash forward, you're primarily now in qualitative, is that correct? Or because it sounds like you have...
We're full service, so we do both qualitative and quantitative research.
Okay. And you, specifically, I mean, what would you say your forte is? I mean, because you have both background, obviously, in quant and qual, but...
Yeah, we do quant and qual, but I'll tell you, typically, now we do as much or as little as our client wants. So we have clients that span different industries, but we also have some clients, all they want they've already written their guide. This is on the qualitative side. They've already written their guide. All they need me to do is come in and facilitate or moderate. They write their own report. That's it. I'm just in and out as a facilitator. We have some clients, and that's what we can touch on here for a brief moment, is we have some clients that are full service. What that means is we go in, we talk to them, they give us whatever their initial problem or what are their objectives of their research. We'll come back, we'll do a proposal. And most of the time, if it's a full service project, we're going to start with qual. We're going to start with qualitative. Whether we're doing focus groups, whether we're going to do some IDIs, in-depth interviews, we'll start there so we can get those who, what, where, when, and why. Then we'll follow up with a quantitative survey so we can statistically validate what we've learned in the qualitative phase.
Yeah, I was just talking about this. I mean, that's the ideal, right? Like, of course, there's restraints on the client side. Sometimes they can only do one, but when you have both, I mean, that's where the real insights come. And I'm curious. So, we're almost a year into this pandemic. There's been some obvious implications on the qual side in terms of in person. How is qualitative research changing from your perspective during this pandemic?
You know what, Deidre, as I said before, I'm not 30 or 40 years old. Deidre and I quickly, because of health reasons, and we needed to be careful. But I'll tell you what, I am really liking this new platform. Although I really like to be able to see my respondents in the same room as we're facilitating a focus group, we have moved to the online platform. And I don't want to call anybody out, but we had a real sophisticated one that we were using, that we had used before, but not user friendly for the consumer. And I think it's important that it has to be user friendly. So I'll tell you what we use now. And of course it is Zoom. Most of the respondents are able to put it on their laptop, or it's very easily installed on the phone, and it's very easy. So most all of our clients, that's the platform that they use for focus groups or IDIs.
Oh, wow. So you're using Zooms both for one-on-ones and focus groups.
Yes. And, it's a little bit different because there are some platforms I know out there where if you have your client viewing, you wouldn't even see them or we wouldn't even know they were there. I will have to say, and I bet they're going to probably work on this, but I know with Zoom, the clients, you don't see their face. So you'll see me, you'll see our respondents. And I tell them we've got others on the line, but I still do the same spiel as I did for in person, but you might see a name, initials, let's say initials, but I've not found it distracting at all. And with that, we're not doing 12 around a table. Probably, to me, a good number is no more than 9, but even better, I like to 6 to 7 or 8.
And, you bring up a point that I haven't heard anyone bring up before, which is so important about the tool being user-friendly for the respondent. So much of the time as researchers, we're wrapped up in what works for us.
Yes.
But, right? I'm sure the other tool you were using made it much easier to put your notes in and record. But ultimately, if it's not user-friendly for the respondent, what are we doing, right?
Exactly. And, and you look out for your client, what does the client want? But we've not had any problem. We say, because it's user friendly. Matter of fact, I had a client, I was using a different platform and the respondents couldn't sign in. They didn't understand it. Look, half the time, sometimes I didn't even understand it too. And they quickly said, if for the next groups, if you want to use Zoom, we're all for it because that is important. We have to, it's the respondent. That's who we're asking the question of. So we need to make it as simple as possible for them. Otherwise they'll be frustrated even before we start the focus group.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And Zoom, of course I was going to say Zoom's ubiquitous, but Zoom's ubiquitous for people that work and have, really have the privilege of being able to work from home.
Yeah.
I mean, I have so many questions, but where to start? So you mentioned about, 6 to 7 in a focus group now. Has that changed from where you were pre-pandemic? Like, have you made groups smaller now because you're moving things online?
I would say somewhat smaller, although, like I said, typically in a focus group, we would typically, depending on a lot of times, we do a lot of multicultural research. So we usually over recruit. So say typically general markets, you might do 12 for 8 to 10. Multicultural, other ethnic markets, we would do 14 for 8 to 10. But now you could still probably do your 12. Now, and let me just back up a minute. When we were doing face-to-face, I would have some clients say, Delphine, will you take all 12? That's a lot in a focus group when you're doing 90 to 2 hours, but I've done it. But it's a little bit different to me when you're on the screen. I have a big screen, but to me, we minimize it. I would say the highest I've done, like I said before, is 9. So online, 9. And then that's kind of typical. So I almost want to go back and say we've done both. We've cut down a little bit, but for the most part, it depends on the show rate. And those can be all over the place, even with this new platform that we're doing.
And have you seen, prior to the pandemic, I mean, were you doing primarily in person and like you saw like a shift, now you're all online? Is that safe to say? Like, how was that transition for you all?
That's very safe to say. Cause I remember Deidre and I, our last trip, this is crazy. We're in 2021, right? We went to the Insights. We went to the Insights has, they're broken up into regions. So we were in Las Vegas. And
that's the best one.
Yeah, we were in Las Vegas. We go there every February.
The Southwest chapter, right? Yeah.
Southwest chapter. We've been for the last 5 or 6 years, and I see they're doing it virtual this year. That was our last trip. That's the last time I've been on a plane, was last February. Then after that, of course, things shut down. And then I wouldn't say until maybe spring, maybe early summer, we started getting calls, about focus groups, but we didn't even have to make the switch and say, we're not traveling. They already had said, no, we know that and I think our first client might've said Zoom already. Like they had already had some, they knew about Zoom. So
that's great.
I have not been back into a focus group facility, although I'm getting tons of emails. Welcome back. Come on back. But so far, our clients have not requested that.
And so you mentioned, multicultural consumers. And, one thing I worry about, and I'm curious if you'll feel this way, like it's difficult to recruit some audiences, period, for focus groups and get them in. Lots of different factors there. But have you found it even more difficult to recruit them online? Because there's lots of people that, for us, Zoom is ubiquitous, but it is a privilege to be able to work from home. And, some statistics, Hispanic and Black respondents are less likely to be able to work from home. A lot of us are frontline workers. Like how have you all bridged that gap of trying to get those people into focus groups?
So, we've always done though. Again, it's the consumer. So typically a focus group is held in the evening. And what we've found so far right now, what we've found both Hispanic, although I will have to say we've not done a whole lot of Hispanic work that this past year, more African American, is that they've got a phone. So a lot of them I would say would be on their phone, and they have Wi-Fi. They have Wi-Fi or they have some kind of internet connection. I know it can be low. It can be low, but so far that has not been a hindrance.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good point, right? And you're spot on. And I guess that's another plus for Zoom. It's mobile friendly.
Yes.
I don't know about these other platforms, but Zoom, you can pull it up on your phone. The quality may not be exactly what you want, but at least that you're getting that person's opinion, which is so important.
Although I will say this, there have been some glitches though. There has been some glitches because if you're not in a good area, that Wi-Fi, I remember working on a project. So yeah, let me go back. It has been times where we have lost some respondents due to poor connection or poor Wi-Fi. And the other thing too, with the focus group and the phone, the respondent, though, it's okay for me because I'm working from a laptop, but a respondent, there's some trick to it. If you're doing Zoom on your phone and seeing your other fellow participants, there's a couple of buttons and things that are different on the phone than your laptop.
Yeah. I know I've done a Zoom on my phone, and, for someone that Zoom all the time, like the user interface is still a little weird on the phone. So I think that's a good thing for researchers trying to reach, multicultural consumers, or even it doesn't have to be multicultural, right? So much, a large portion of people in this country just don't have broadband internet. But I think we tend to forget that.
But we've worked on, we've not run into those glitches. And we've been doing, we've also lately too, we've been doing a lot of online quantitative work. And so far, but we work with partners who have panels, so it's been fine.
That's good to hear. So, thinking about this, it sounds like your business went from almost 100% in person to 100% online, and from the qualitative side, like, flash forward, God willing, we get out of this pandemic, things are back to normal, focus group facilities are open. Do you think we will shift back to in person, or do you think there's going to be some lasting effects of this surgence in online now?
I absolutely think it's going to be a difference. I think we're now going to have mixed model. Because think about it. Clients are no longer having to fly in. They're not having to pay me as a moderator to go from the West Coast to the East Coast. So budgets,
no more M&Ms in
the back room. No more M&Ms. I'm getting a little spoiled not being on a plane every week or every other day being on a plane. Although again, it still is. We still are missing that human touch, so to speak. Although you don't touch people in a focus group, you still that body language. Although again, you can see body language on when you're recording these, you can see body language. But I think now, I don't think we're going back to 100% in person. I think it's going to depend on projects. Now, I think corporations are going to be looking at their budgets. I can do more focus groups if I do Zoom. So I think it's going to be mixture. I think we'll go back, but I just think it project by project.
For sure. Yeah, I agree with that because like you said, we're spoiled. I mean, and it's both for the client and the moderators and the qualitative researchers. You don't have to travel. You can do more groups in a day. Across the country, right? Like you can wake up, do a group on the West Coast, and at night do one on the East Coast.
Exactly.
So you can be more efficient with your time. Yeah, that's so true. I mean, I feel bad though for all those the focus group facilities, right? Like, what are they going to do?
Yeah, I know they probably have a pivot a little bit. So a lot of them that we used to work with, a lot of them, they did recruiting. So that part didn't go away. And if I'm not mistaken, like I said, I've been getting emails from facilities. I think people are slowly going, but I know Deidre and I right now, we've just decided, because we have turned down very little though, but we have had a few clients that are going back to in-person.
I wonder if, the focus group facilities, another pivot, and maybe there's a company doing this out there. If you have an online focus group and a certain DMA where you need respondents that are traditionally difficult to reach, like we've mentioned, if they could invite them in, use their broadband, their high-speed internet, and have them Zoom from the facilities.
Wow. Good point. Absolutely good point. I don't know that I've heard that, but that definitely would work.
That would work, right? I mean, like you could have a couple people there, not, I don't know. I feel like there's something there. Like that would be cool. And even like, have like you as a virtual moderator where you're there and like, somehow projected on a television or something like that. So it looks like you're there,
So it looks like I'm there and they're still sitting around the facility recruiting. So absolutely. And they do video. And I know we've streamed. I know we've streamed before where clients weren't able to participate. So I'm sure it's doable.
Yeah. Let me know. If you do that, I would be interested to see that.
Will do.
So shifting a little bit, we've been talking a little bit about multicultural audiences. You're clearly, an expert in this field, having worked among these audience, African American, Hispanic. I mean, what are some things that brands, companies should keep in mind when they're conducting qualitative research among multicultural audiences?
I know one thing with different multicultural audiences, they view things differently. They may look at a commercial differently or a print ad differently because of their, I don't want to say their area of expertise, because of the way they grew up.
Their cultural background, right?
So I think you have to bring that sensitivity. Also, sometimes if we're reviewing a different ad, sometimes they corporations may think, let's put one of these and one of these and one of these in there, and that does it. No, you've got to, your brand speaks to audiences in different ways. So I think it's very important And I think it's going to become more and more important, especially with everything that's going on now with Black Lives Matter and the feminist movements and things like that. I think corporations are going to start to pay more attention to those cultural nuances and sensitivity when they bring a new product or service on. You can't just do a general market focus group, and you can't. And I'll tell you the other thing: you do 5 general markets, 1 Black and 1 Hispanic. I think you're going to have to start to begin to do more multicultural research.
That's such a good point, right? And it's also depending on the product. I see that so much where the multicultural focus group or the sample is just kind of a bolt-on, and the demographics of this country are changing, especially some DMAs. It should be the inverse. You should be having 5 multicultural groups, 1 general market, because that's what the numbers are, right? I mean, look at Los Angeles, Atlanta, New Orleans, New York. I mean, some of the largest DMAs are minority majority. And so that's a really good point. I mean, I feel like a lot of companies and brands, I think they just don't realize it. They just keep on doing, the same number of focus groups because that's how they've always done.
Mm-hmm. And, I'm just I guess we've been meeting now for several months. I'm part of a Multicultural Insights Collective. It's 9 of us. We have different area expertise. We've got white male, white females. We got me, a couple of African Americans. We have a Hispanic, but we've all come together we're putting together, it's called the Multicultural Insights Collective, Words Matter. We did a real brief survey, but we're right now in the midst of getting some backers, some corporations to come in, and we do this very large quant study talking about how words matter. And this whole notion of all this D&I, all the corporations have these D&I departments and talk about inclusion and diversity, but are you really serious about diversity and inclusion? And that goes from employees to your vendors to when you're doing your research among your the people who buy your products, consumers.
It's so true, right? Because I think a lot of the time companies have thought of, when you say diversity and inclusion, HR, hiring more people of color, hiring more diverse candidates. But diversity and inclusion goes beyond that. It's executives, how diverse is your executive set, your employees, but also how diverse is the messaging that you're putting out there to consumers? Because diversity and inclusion is not only about the talent you attract, but the clients that you attract as well.
Absolutely. I agree with you on that. And how about diversity and inclusion? I have a client, and that's kind of one of the questions sometimes when I'm doing research with them. They'll have me ask the respondent, what does diversity look like for you? It goes so far beyond race too. Diversity, we're talking about height, size of people, if anyone has a disability, and sometimes that a disability, and then a number of other factors. Age, most definitely. Mm-hmm.
Age, yeah. I mean, where we are in the country, right? Like, diversity, gender.
Gender. No longer are you just asking on a questionnaire, are you male or female? It goes way beyond that. It may have went from 3 or 4. I think my business partner is working on a quantitative survey right now. And I think that gender question, it may have 7 different answers.
Yeah, no, we got to think beyond that binary. One thing I'm curious if you have an opinion on, and I feel like it's an ongoing debate in the market research industry. There are some companies that prefer to have a moderator that reflects the group, whether that's gender, whether that's ethnicity, whether that's age. Like, from your perspective and your experience, how important is it having a moderator that reflects the participant's identity or culture?
For the most part, I absolutely agree. Although I'll have to say, I'm African-American female. We had an insurance client and I did their agents. They were all white males. And I moderated that group and they opened up to me. I don't know. Sometimes I have found that a lot of people think, I guess I have that face or that whatever. But for the most part, I would say, yes, you do. I have also interviewed from children to seniors. But for the most part, especially if you're doing like an African American, they're all African American. I think you need an African American moderator. And that I would typically say, yes, I do agree with that.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, and I think there's some, cultural factors to think about there, right? I mean, one of the things I think that we don't talk about enough in the market industry is, why is it so difficult to get African-American respondents or Hispanic respondents? And part of it, especially I believe for Black respondents, is, a sense of distrust when it comes to the market research. I mean, to answering questions in general, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of people don't understand the historical background for that. And I feel like having a moderator that reflects your identity bridges some of that trust.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely. Because you have, a matter of fact, I would say even when I'm moderating a focus group, whatever the focus group is or topic, within the first few minutes from when those respondents start walking in the door, I have to develop a rapport with them. And even sometimes I'll go out into the waiting room sometimes, and my client likes that, I'm the moderator. They want to have a level of comfort because I'm sometimes some of these subject matters, I'm asking some pretty, tough questions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, pretty tough questions. So you've got to be able to develop a rapport. And another thing that I do, I most definitely stick to my client's guide or whatever we have decided to do. And I'm the moderator. So I listen, and I am not trying to put words in anyone's mouth, but you also have to be a good listener. And all I'm asking the question and they're giving me the answer. I don't do a whole lot of talking in between. Ask a question, be quiet, listen to what they're saying, and then follow up with your probes.
100%. Well, thank you so much. Believe it or not, we're already at our time. That was a very natural, great conversation. I appreciate you coming on the New Mainstream podcast. For people that want to connect with you online, social media, what's the best way to connect with you?
So the best way is I'm telling my age again, Mario. I am on LinkedIn. It's Delphine. Just Delphyne Lomax Taylor. But I know you can also reach out to me you can go on our website, which will have all our information at www.v like victory, L like love, research.com. And my email address is vlresearch@mind, that's MIND like David, spring.com. And it's been my pleasure.
Thank you so much, Delphine, and thank you everyone for listening. Thanks to everyone listening in. To get more multicultural insights, check us out at thinknow.com and follow us on social media. You can also subscribe to this podcast on your favorite platform. Final thank you to our producer, Lucas Martinez, who created our intro music and makes our podcast sound great. To email him, reach out to martinez.lucas.a@gmail.com.